Presenting the PR Maven podcast, hosted by Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven, targeted at business leaders who want to merge the best techniques of traditional networking with the best new platforms and technologies to engage your target audience, build your network, and grow your brand and business. The podcast is sponsored by Marshall Communications, Maine-based, globally connected. As we get ready for another great episode, remember, you can always connect with Nancy and other listeners on the PR Maven Nation group page on Facebook. Now, here's your host, Nancy Marshall.
Hello, PR Maven Nation. Welcome to the PR Maven podcast, episode number 36, presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan 65-Step Strategic Process. For those of you who are new to the show, I'm your host, Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. And for those of you who have been here all along listening, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I'm a little bit tongue-tied and a little starstruck today because I have this guest who I really admire so much because he just personifies everything that I try to talk about in this podcast, which is enhancing your traditional face-to-face relationships, because I think that's where the magic really happens, with the use of today's new technology to sort of extend relationships and follow up with people after you've met them or reach out to people before you've met them. But always I feel like you should be trying to meet people in person. And I was able to meet Tim for the first time, I think, at the social media breakfast.
I believe so, Portland. Yeah, in Portland a few years ago.
So today's guest is Lieutenant Tim Cotton of the Bangor Police Department. And I want to welcome you.
Oh, no, I'm very pleased and honored that you selected me to come over and be one of your victims.
I'm sort of a mess because
that's okay.
I admire you so
Nancy is always showing up at these events, and she's near the front row, and she always has a question, and it's always she's a good audience member as well as a great PR lady. So
thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I'm always probably smiling and goo-goo-eyed a little bit because I think you're just really amazing. So, all right, so here's his bio. Tim's father was a police officer, and he came off the beat in 1963. Tim didn't follow in his father's footsteps at first. Instead, he worked in radio, hosting local morning shows and writing newspaper articles. He sought out police work later in life. Well, not that late, because you're still so young.
Oh, yeah, I'm just a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to most officers, he started out in police work later in life. And he had the inclination to law enforcement in the 1980s, and he hasn't looked back since. His strong communication skills and background are what have led him to his unique position today. In addition to his roles with the department, he is most well known for managing the Bangor Police Department's Facebook page. And if you aren't following that, you should follow it immediately. Do not pass go. Go immediately to Facebook and sign up for the Bangor Police Department's Facebook page. Lieutenant Cotton's posts, which range from retellings of some emergency calls the department receives to photos of the now famous, because of him, Duck of Justice mascot, are comedic musings often written in a stream of consciousness, tongue-in-cheek manner. So, again, welcome, Tim Cotton, and thank you for coming. We're sitting here today at Husson University in Bangor at NESCOM, the New England School of Communications, which is pretty nice.
Beautiful.
Whew.
I was here the first year. I came the first year they opened here. This is where I went to school. And we were doing it out of we were educated out of a building downtown Bangor. So this place is beautiful now.
Yeah, and
Incredible.
I just had lunch at their beautiful. They call it a cafeteria, but it might as well be like the food court in a fancy upscale mall or something. Yeah, very nice. All kinds of choices.
Good.
So to kick things off, tell us about your career, Tim, and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, my career for law enforcement, I just decided that I wanted to be a cop. For some reason, I was working at the time in radio at WZON at that time, Stephen King's rock and roll station, now WKIT. So I first was hired at WABI by George Hale, who I see every now and then at a local radio station, VOM. So he was my first boss, gave me my first chance at radio, and I liked it. I enjoyed it, and then I went over across town to Broadway to WZON, spent a few years there doing news, and also did a morning show with Bobby Russell, who's still over there doing a morning show. And we had some great times, but at some point in my life, I decided I wanted to be a police officer. So I sought out that career with I just thought it would look like a good time, frankly. And it has been. But I went to work at Hamden PD, just south of Bangor, and worked for a great chief named Joe Rogers, who's retiring this year. He was just a great mentor, a good person, and it was a great place to learn. And I'd go back and work there right now. It's just it's a great town. Hamden's a great town. And then I came to Bangor PD in 1997 because I had aspirations to be. I wanted to work on homicides. That was at that time, it's like the pinnacle to me of crime solving is to solve a homicide. So I was able to do that. And while at Bangor, I was able to be a DARE officer, a school resource officer at the high schools in Bangor. So I met a lot of great people, great teachers, just had great relationships. And then I became a detective in 2001, where I spent most of my career till 2014, when I became the public information officer, which is a sergeant's position. I was promoted. I got asked my whole career, why aren't you a sergeant yet? Because people act like that's, you must move up to be enjoying your job. You must get ahead. And I never felt that way. I said, this is the job I love. Why would I don't need a title to enjoy myself. And this is the job I love, putting people in prison for killing others or child abuse or the serious crimes. To me, that was the pinnacle of my career. And I took the chance at becoming a sergeant because I thought it was just time. There are times I look back, I wish I'd stayed a detective but I became a PIO, and that's when I got the Facebook page. And so I did that for 4 years, and then the opportunity came up to be a lieutenant. So I went through the process and became a lieutenant. They moved me back to be the commander of the detective unit, which is really, an honor in itself. It is the best job in the building. But I've had the best of both worlds because no one wanted to take over the Facebook page when I left because no one wanted to follow what I had done, meaning, they didn't want to write a page like I did, and no one really and I don't blame them. I can see that it's a lot of work, and it's not work you're paid for typically. So I kept the Facebook page, which is a strange conglomeration because I'm a lieutenant of CID, but I'm still doing the page. But it's been great, and the page took off over those years, and we've had a lot of success.
And you're still doing it?
I still do the page every day from home. Yeah, I write it at home, usually when I get up in the morning, 4 or 5, 4 usually. I try to write that page and get something on, and it became a kind of a hybrid thing. I write stories that aren't related anything to law enforcement, and that took off, and that's been well received. And so recently, I opened my own Facebook page to sort of write some things that have zero bearing on police work, which is where I enjoy writing about people and things and objects, and so I thought, well, maybe it'd be better if I had my own page. So that's taken off. I opened that in December, and it's at Tim Cotton Writes, and we're up around 30,000 followers there. So it's been we've had a really good time, and now it's hard because I have to keep both pages filled, but people on both pages are really, they're the same people. I mean, there's a lot of people that follow me in both places. So it's been fantastic. We have over 300,000 followers on Bangor PD Facebook. For a town of 31,410 people, that's a lot of followers. But mostly nationally and internationally. Locally, sometimes people are surprised that they come to town, they want to meet the Duck of Justice or come see me, and they don't understand why no one knows about it here. Well, they just don't follow the page. So it's kind of a weird little thing.
I think you and Stephen King and the Duck of Justice are perhaps the best-known celebrities in Bangor.
I think the Duck next to Stephen, then I'd be third. But yeah, well, I mean, in some circles, no one knows, which is okay. I don't need, we don't need that. I have fun doing it, and there's no financial gain, so it's a lot of work. But I think it's important that we try to tell our story through our own words, rather than let everyone else tell our story. And I think police departments over the years have let others tell their story, and they're angry about it, but you just need to find a way to tell your own story. You don't need other people. So
that's one of the beauties of social media.
That's really,
right?
it's been a big change for law enforcement. And I think there's a lot of agencies. I started making, there were some funny posts initially, and people really liked the humor. But it opens you up for a lot of other questions. Should it be funny? Should it, should we make fun of people? So I've kind of become, I've learned a lot about what I don't want to do on Facebook. I don't want to do stupid videos that are farces and fake. I don't want to. Everything doesn't have to be snide. Although I think sometimes snark is a dangerous weapon if you don't use it or wield it correctly. So I think I usually try to do that. I've screwed up, yes, but I try to use a little snark, a little humor, but I usually try to get a point across and talk about the kindness and the general kindness that I think most police officers have towards the public. They just don't see that end, and I want to show that or showcase it if I can. So we've tried and we've done okay.
And the Duck of Justice, how did that come about?
Well, the Duck of Justice is a strange story, and it's still strange to me to tell the story because it's bizarre how big a deal that became. But I think it became the focal point for us. It's sort of like a shoehorn. You don't think of it until you need it, and then you use it, and your shoe goes on comfortably, and you don't wreck the back of your bean loafers, right? So the duck was in the district attorney's office in Bangor, and it was a stuffed wood duck. And it was there the first day I went to the DA's office as a police officer, and there was a lady there named Christine.
Hang on just a second.
Yeah.
A stuffed wood duck, not a stuffed wooden duck.
Right, it's not a wooden duck.
A wood duck is a species of duck.
That's correct.
Okay.
American wood duck.
Okay, so I bet a lot of people when you say that.
No, a lot of people don't say,
think,
yes.
oh,
good
yeah,
point.
how a wooden duck stuff. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this was a taxidermied American wood duck.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was sitting up on a shelf, and it was it was already beat up. It'd been there a few years, and I said to the Christine, who's still there, she's the chief administrator of the office now, and I said, why do you have the wood duck up there? And she said, oh, it was shot in a hunting thing, and the warden service, we convicted the individuals who shot the duck, and the warden service had it stuffed and gave it to us as a gift. And so there's basically the duck is a victim of a crime. And I said, well, if you ever get rid of it, let me know. And she's like, oh, I would love to get rid of it. It stares at us all day from the shelf, So that took about 20 years later, actually more than that, and just about 20 years later, the DA's office was moving, and there's a German girl named Andrea White, nice, lovely girl. And she's German. And when I say German, I say that because her accent is so bold, and she really enunciates things. And she she ha ha. A lot of the K's and the X's and the C's sounded different. So she was laughing. We always laughed. And she's actually married to a state police officer. So anyway, she was throwing it away because she'd had it with the duck. And she's, I hate that duck. I hate that damn duck. And she threw it in the trash can. And I said, well, now it's a freebie because this is, I don't need a warrant to take something out of the garbage. I said, I'll take it right now. So I took the duck and I brought it back to my cubicle at the station. I was still a detective. And I sat it on a cabinet in my cubicle. And when people came in, and it was damaged and it kind of broken and bent over. And it really looked a mess. And people would always say, well, why do you have that in here? I said, well, you can't lie. It's a duck of truth. You can't lie in front of the duck. And it would break the ice, in conversations with some people that had done bad things. And so they'd laugh, we'd laugh, and then we'd talk, and maybe they'd tell me more, and maybe not. But in the end, they'd always say, I like your duck, And so when I moved to PIO, or Public Information Officer, I took it with me because I'd become part of the whole shtick. It was always a joke. And so we stuck it in a couple of pictures. I do new officer interview thing when we get new officers. And I wrote the questions and I answer the questions. I have them give me their answer and then I kind of tune it up so it's a little more snarky between us. And it's kind of fun. And I get their approval of how I wrote it usually. And it was just introduced the people that came on. And so one day, I think it was Jimmy Burns, who now works for me as a detective. I took the duck. I said, hey, just when I take a picture for the page, just hold the duck. And we won't say anything about the duck. So we slid it. I think we slid the beak into the picture and then the head and another picture. And then, sorry about that. And sooner or later, we had him holding the duck when they came in. And people started asking questions, what's up with that duck in the picture? And I wouldn't say anything because sometimes unspoken is much more powerful than saying it. And I just say, I don't know what you're talking about, and ignore it. And it became kind of humorous. And now people were getting angry that I wouldn't talk about why there's a duck in the pictures. And I was getting notes and phone calls. Why do you stick a duck in there? No, what duck? That we did that. So finally, I decided, hey, well, let's introduce it as the Duck of Justice. It's funny. It was a play of the words for the Department of Justice for me, DOJ. And I said, that would be kind of funny. We'll call it the DOJ. And then every time they search DOJ on the internet, they'll see the Duck of Justice will go. And it does. If you search DOJ, you might find the Department of Justice, but the Duck will come in there. And I said, that's a great way to, I don't need any help to get this.
Google thinks you're just as important
just
at
as
the
important.
Department of Justice.
That's right. So then people wanted to see and meet the duck. So for a few years, we would let them hold it down in the lobby. We'd take the duck down. They could get their picture. Anything on the internet.
It's probably getting more tattered than ever.
It was destroyed, really. So we finally had it rebuilt a year and a half ago by a great taxidermist, world-class taxidermist from Stockton Springs. His name is Reardon. And he did it for almost gratis. And as a matter of fact, he called me in the middle of it, said, Tim, this duck is destroyed because people touching the feathers, the oil wrecks the feathers. He says, this is destroyed.
And that duck's getting pretty old now.
Yeah, he's about
he's been
well
dead
over
for
30.
Long time.
Yeah, a long time.
None of us are going to last that long.
We can't last forever.
Unfortunately.
Yes. So he said, look, I have another duck in the freezer. I'll replace it. And I said, you can't do that.
No. This is
I said, I'd be lying. I'd be lying if I produced. So
that'd be cursed.
Crazy. So he said, okay, I'll fix it the best I can. And he did a nice work. But then he promised for his discounted rate to fix the duck, he said, you just have to put under glass. And I said, oh, that's too bad because people like to hold it and touch it. He said, yeah, you can't. I can't fix it again. It'll be destroyed. So we put it in, I always call it the upside down aquarium we found on the side of the road on Burt Street, but that's not true. It's a glass case for the duck. And because we like the main the main twist of finding stuff in the garbage because I'm a Mainer and I would take something off your curb in a heartbeat if it, whether, maybe a set of, I don't know. I think about it.
Here in Maine, instead of calling it the dump, sometimes we call it the mall.
The mall,
right?
It's a drive-through mall.
Especially the malls that have stores. Like some dumps have the lost and found.
Yeah,
that you can just take something good.
And so if it's on the corner, you can take it. Kind of like the duck. The duck came to us by taking it out of the garbage. So anyway, we put it in there. It's in our museum. We have a great museum, a small museum at the station, but it's actually very nice. And it became the focal point of the museum. So more people come to our museum now to see the duck, but then when they get there, they see the museum. And they can see the history of Bangor PD, and it's well taken care of by our Explorer Post and our officer, Jimmy Hazard. It used to be run by Fred Bryan, a former retiree, and he collected just droves of tons of stuff. It's a really neat museum. And so the duck is in the museum, and you can go in.
What's the address?
240 Main Street in Bangor.
All right.
We were listed in some of the smallest police museums in the country, but it's very well done, and it's a good place to catch the history.
Yeah.
So people come to see the duck, they stay for the museum, or they come for the museum and they get to see the duck.
It's all free.
It's absolutely free.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we have, last year we had, excess of 2,000 or 3,000 visitors to come to our lobby to get a picture with this duck. And so it's just he became his own thing,
So, Tim, can you give me an example of how PR and social media have helped to advance either you personally, your organization, or, well, you don't have clients per se, but
not really.
I mean, PR and social media has kind of made you and the duck.
Yeah, we become very. You can search us and find us, I suppose. And
you're very findable, yeah.
Well, I can say this. One of the things I picked up is by watching other Facebook pages is I picked up that everybody, to be funny, they try to be mean. They try to snark. They use snark in a bad way. And I'm not saying all police departments because some do great work. But I think we're trying to tune our story to the people that are going to like and laugh the most. But what I try to do is just try to find the people who are interested in the story and just try to share a message of kindness. Well, that sort of moved over as people felt like, hey, they're nice there. Let's try to help them out. So we had hats for the homeless come out of that. And I asked for a few hats for people that are homeless, knit caps for the cold winter. We have a lot of homeless. We do have a large homeless population and transient population. And so I said, well, why don't we try to get some hats just to give out for the guys and the girls and the cruisers? And I say girls, and I get in trouble for saying girls, but I mean ladies, because I call cops the boys.
Right, yeah.
And so I always feel like you got to say boys and girls, not boys and ladies. So
You're
it sounds weirder. So I've got a lot of letters about that and said, don't call women girls. Well, I mean it in a kind sense of like, these are the boys, these are the girls.
Right.
And
you
the girls.
Can call me a girl anytime.
I don't find it offensive, but I get where somebody does. But I got to be careful because, once you get a broader audience, if they only come to hear what you have to say and they see that one thing that's really offensive, then they might go away, which, So anyway, we just asked for a couple of hats. Well, what happened was we've got, at that point, 100,000 followers on the Facebook page. And they started coming from New Zealand and Australia and Indonesia and England. There was knitting groups in England shipping hats to. So we ended up in my office with stacks of hats and mittens. So now we're like, what do we do? I mean, we don't have this many people that are in need. No. So we started, then we first gave them to our local shelter. And then we decided, well, let's expand it to whoever, like a Good Samaritan agency and Goodwill and some of the adoption agencies, the hospital. We started asking for specific like infant caps, and there's always somebody. There's knitters out there that are just, I call them, rampant knitters. They want to make something, but they want to give it away. Yeah. And so we became the clearinghouse. So some years, like last year, I think 1,600 hats and cut. Well, we don't need that many, so we give them out. We take them to other police departments and say, hey, do you folks want a box of hats in case, right? It's cold here, and they all take them, and then they can do the same thing. So that's kind of a weird thing that occurred because we just asked for one thing. And the problem is I've had to learn to be very careful what I say I want or need when I write, because I might write it in a tongue-in-cheek way, but that stuff starts to arrive within 4 days after Amazon gets hit. So we've done
more dead ducks, for example.
No ducks, but people send food sometimes, like they believe the duck is alive. They'll send bread, and I'll be like, oh, I'll take it to the shelter, So that's one thing. We also had an issue with folks locally that were not able to be sheltered. They might choose to live outside, which is a thing. Even in the cold weather, there's people that will not go to a shelter. So at one point, the shelter asked for some sleeping bags. I mentioned it, and within 4 or 5 days, we had 100 sleeping bags in our lobby. So we gave them out. So I'm very cautious what I ask for because I don't want to ask. And now I try to make sure I do a footnote that says, hey, if your local agencies might use the same things we're asking for, so don't feel like you have to ship things to us. If you want to help where you are.
Yeah, it totally amplifies the be careful what you wish for.
It certainly does. Right? It certainly does. So that's been huge. And the other thing we do a lot of is people started sending gift cards, like small denomination gift cards, and we carry them in our cruisers. So the officers have a couple with them. If we run into somebody who's hungry, people have given gas cards for folks, like a domestic violence situation where a woman can't get out of town or a victim of the violence, we can give them a gas card to help them. It's little gifts like that. The problem is we get so many. Sometimes I have to tell people, hey, slow down, because we don't want to have a plethora of cards and not enough people to give to. But even at the show, I was down in Washington this past weekend, people came and brought me gift cards to bring back to Maine, Dunkin' Donuts, and they want me to be able to give those. So it's a way, I call it a conduit of kindness, which I don't like goofy connections like that, but it is true. We became the conduit for which people could actually share their kindness to an agency that may not have the stuff to help a person they'll never know. And most of our followers are such nice people and kind that they think this is a great way for them to give back. So we have literally stacks of gift cards, and we keep them. We keep the officers well stocked. If there's a transient or even a drug-addicted person who doesn't have any food, we'll give it. We might have some for 20. We have grocery cards. So we can help those people out when we have an interaction with them. And we always tell them, this isn't from us. This is from somebody else who wants this given to you anonymously. We're just the people. It's not the PD. We're just helping through. So it's crazy, but it's really been really nice,
It's a phenomenon.
Yeah, it is.
It's a phenomenal phenomenon.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal phenomenon. So those are some ways that social media has paid us back in tenfold for what we give out. So it's really great.
I think it's great too, and I think it's all centered around kindness.
It is. Yeah, we try.
Of humanity.
Sure.
So I know that PR, marketing, and certainly social media have changed drastically over the course of my career, and I imagine they have over yours too. Mm-hmm. What techniques are you using now that you were not using when you started out?
Well, I started actually using hashtags every now and then. I wasn't a social media person starting this, and I didn't know anything about it, which is maybe was better. Maybe it was better because I didn't have any preconceived notions of what I had to do. But I realized fast that interacting with people and answering questions. I try to answer all our messages, and I try to read. I actually don't try. I read every comment. I read every comment because you don't know what's going to be in there. You don't know. For me, it could be that someone could ask for help in a comment. They could ask for something in a comment that maybe I can help with. So I read every comment, and people say, how do you find time to do that? Well, instead of wasting my time looking at pictures on my Facebook page, which is has a meager selection on my own person, I don't do anything. I don't really like to spread, my news on Facebook. But I do, when I have a moment, I open up my phone, I keep the media manager there, and I read the comments. And I try to go through, and if I find somebody that needs something, or, there's been people that have spoken of suicide, we send them a message. There's been people that have asked for help, and we've been able to do it. There's been people who've reported crime. So we read those comments for those reasons, and I don't want to miss a comment because I'd feel horrible if I ever missed a comment and some of our posts have upwards of 2,000 or 3,000 comments, but I scroll through. I can't, if there's a really long one, I'll just scan it to make sure there's nothing important. So I've had to become more cognizant of all, but I also try to answer. And I don't think people do, and I don't think anybody listens to me when I tell them that. I look at a lot of Facebook pages. Just to get, not for ideas. I like to see what they're doing. And what I notice is a lot of places will put a very concerning, a very heartfelt Facebook post on, and then I'll read the comments, and they're never in the middle of those comments from their particular agency or business. They don't say anything back. And I say, I'm immediately turned off. And I'm like, well, you didn't mean that. You don't mean that. And if you can't say it heartfelt, then you shouldn't say it, but don't start it and ask for, hey, we'd love your comments today. And not return anything back to the person who's spending their time on your media or your social media.
Well, there's two things that I love about what you're saying. One is that you haven't used the word engagement yet.
No.
Because the social media people, the marketing people are always talking about engagement.
Absolutely.
And you talk about interacting with people and having conversations. So that's awesome because you are doing engagement.
Right. Sure.
So
yes.
Bravo to you. And the other thing is that you're talking about authenticity, and you haven't used that word either. But that's a really overused word now. Everybody says, oh, yeah, you got to be authentic. Mm-hmm. You are being authentic, but you're not calling it that.
Yeah. One of the things that really took off for us, and I think he does it. Mike Rowe has followed our page, and I've met Mike. He came up. I had written a post about a dream I had about Mike. So I'll say things that no one's expecting me to say, and I did have a dream about Mike Rowe. About Mike. I was at his house for some reason. You see his kitchen when he does his podcasts and things, and I remember that Britney Spears had stayed there in this dream, which I don't listen to Britney Spears typically, but that was the dream. You know how dreams can be just stupid. Yeah. And he only had 2 spoons. And we ate Count Chocula, and I don't eat Count Chocula, so it's probably a commercial from childhood. Oh, so I just wrote a thing about that, and it got shared to Mike's page. And the year later, when he called me he was at Travis Mills' place down there, and in Rome, Maine. And Travis Mills, people know, is a hero, a quadriplegic, and has done wonderful things for veterans in Maine, and has a great outreach down there, bringing vets' families. Injured war vets to his place for a week of respite with their families. It's incredible. What an incredible thing he does. But Mike had come up there to do something special for them, and he called from the dock. Mike called me and said, hey, you got any spoons? And I didn't know who it was. And I said, what are you talking about? And he says, well, we eat Count Chocula. You ate Count Chocula at my house. You don't know who I am.
Oh, God.
And so he had read it a year before, but he had never mentioned it to me.
Oh, that's so funny.
So that's how I met Mike. So I went down and met him, and also was there for an event for Mike's Facebook outreach where he gives back, and they built a great course, a ropes course there for Travis Mills' place. But anyway, so I tell these stories, and it's interesting what comes of it. It's just interesting how this has all gone, and who I've met and who I've spoken to, and I have agencies will call me and ask me what I do. Hey, we'd like to do, we don't want to do full on TC, but we'd like to know. And I just tell them, look, first of all, do not try to be me, because I'm not even sure what me is. I can't tell you that because you might not be humorous, but you might be writing something else that's much more heartfelt than I could. So don't try to be anybody else. And I've never attempted to copy anybody's anything. And for me, I did receive a lot of advice from social media professionals early on, and they said, oh, your posts are way too long. no pictures. You just don't know what you're doing. And I always tell a story. My wife went to Chicago for a social media seminar, and we were at about 30,000 people at the time, 30,000 followers, which we had gone up that much in 2 months in the summer of 14. And she was out there, and the social media professional who was giving them the tips on running a Facebook page. And so she just showed him the phone and said, hey, what do you think of my husband's page? He looked at one post and he said, you got to tell him, too wordy, not enough pictures. It's just not going to work. And she goes, well, they were at 9,000 two months ago, and they're at 30,000 now. He goes, yeah, that's an anomaly. Can't happen. You know, the next year we're at 100. She's at the same place. We're at 100,000 people. And she goes, hey, what do you think of this? He's like, yeah, I don't know how that could, I don't know. Let me tell you why. Because we didn't listen to him.
Right.
Okay.
You did your own thing.
We did whatever we thought. I saw that it worked. And I look at engagement. When I use this term, I look at the engagement numbers on our page.
Right.
And I compare our numbers to some large corporations and a lot of major city police departments just to see what they're getting for numbers compared to ours. I'm never below 30,000 engaging. Most places with more people followers are in the 4,000, 1.5 thousand for the week. And I know that number tells me that whatever I'm doing is causing people to write back, to comment, to like, and to share.
Yeah.
And so I don't change it.
Well, I think they know that you're paying attention.
Well, I hope so. I mean, So it's hard to do. I also lucked out to come into it at the right time because Facebook has changed the way they deliver your product. And they can because they're a business. And people get mad at that. I always say, they provided me a platform for nothing. And someone's going to make money from it. And they are. And that's their right because this is America. And I'm kind of a capitalist myself. So good for them. I don't like everything they do. I don't like everything they produce. I don't like but the bottom line is it's theirs. And if you can come up with something better, you should. And we'll all go to that, So
good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck coming up with a tool like that. So I guess I pay attention to the engagement, and I just think people don't speak back to their people enough, or listen. Even if you were just listening, just sit there and listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, there's an expression to grow bigger ears and a smaller mouth.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And sometimes I should shut my.
I was going to say I have to work on that myself.
We all do. But you're an engaging personality, and you're one of those people. I mean, Nancy has always been, like I said, I think at the beginning, that Nancy's in those audiences, and here she is, doing big things in Maine and big things New England wide with her PR. But she comes to these small events, and you listen. You come and listen because you're looking for the information, and you also give a lot back. But I think a lot of people don't do that. You're not going to see a lot of PR firm people go to a social media breakfast in Portland. Right?
I've gotten more out of that than anything that I've gone to.
And
the other thing is, I'm not a digital native, but I learned early on, back in the 80s, I learned that there's this computer, this internet thing coming, and you better stay on top of the wave or else you're going to just age out.
Absolutely.
And I don't ever want to age out.
No, I bet you don't. And I have to do the same thing because I'm not that. I came up in the same way you did, and I still had to struggle with computers. I bought an Apple for my own writing just because it was easier, but I don't understand all the ramifications and all the gadgets and all the things everybody else does. But I thought to myself, hey, I'm in the social media age, and we created a page by a guy who knows nothing about it. And the truth is, I have a presentation I'll do, sort of like what I did at social media, but if I travel, I call it Facebook entirely by mistake. It's Facebook success entirely by mistake. And actually, Mike Rowe does a video intro for our thing, for our show, or for our presentation, which is hilarious. And people ask me the questions. I'll say, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you. If you're looking for technical advice, what I'm going to say is that interaction between people are what they're coming to you for something, and you better give it back to them or they're just going to go away. You just can't tell people things. You need to listen to people and what they have to say, and they're telling you what they want from you. They're telling you. If you don't listen and you listen to somebody else, who I would listen to is a customer, Carhart, who I've mentioned Carhart on our page, right? So a few weeks ago, the Carhart salesperson for New England shows up at the station. Now, I mentioned Carhart. I didn't get anything from Carhart for doing that, but I wear Carhart, and I know Mainers do, or I'll say something about beans. I buy some bean products. I don't get anything from them, but of course I don't. I buy their product, and I like it. So if I like it, I say something. It's not a commercial. I'm not accepting something back. But Carhart, the Carhart salesperson from New England took over. She comes up, she goes, "Hey, I've shared your stuff with our national firm and they love it, when you mention this stuff." Because I just say, hey, I might mention holes in the Carhart or some duct tape over the hole in your Carhart because it's true. Mainers, right? We make things last, and even Carhart's going to get a hole in it.
Yeah.
She came to the station, she brought me a hat, and she said, "I love your stuff. We love it. Thank you." I said, "You don't have to thank me. I'm just telling I'm telling my story, and you're part of my story. I'm not trying to." And I think that might be where some even in the commercial realm, if you've got we all have to sell what we have to sell, but if you don't believe in a product, then people can tell, But you can tell I believe in that product, and while not being compensated for it, the compensation I get is I can add it to my story and I use it. And Ad Age magazine picked up an article. There's a good article in Ad Age they wrote about me, and the fellow who wrote it said, it was around Christmas 2 years ago, and he called one evening and said, "Hey, man, I just read your Green Acres thing about Mainers. We all look like this." And they put up a picture from the old Green Acres show. And, this is what you think we look like. And I talked about what we wear and things like that. And it was about shoveling snow and how to look like a real Mainer. And he said, and I think the title of the article was "The Best Social Media, the Best Advertising Guy You'll Never Know." And that was about me because I was sharing, and he talked about, my product placement and how it was genius. And I said, "It's not genius. It's just true." Well, I think we got to tell the truth. I mean,
Right.
I don't think you got to find something you believe in, and you got to try to sell it. And if you believe in it, you can sell it without too much fanfare.
Right. That's why you've got the duck of truth.
Duck of truth. Duck of truth, duck of justice. So it's kind of funny the places we've ended up,
Well, speaking of commercial breaks and commercial placement, we're going to take a short commercial break and hear about the Marshall Plan now. But first, we're actually going to give away a copy of my book, PR Works.
Excellent.
And one of my famous things to do today, Pads, which I'm going to give you one today, Tim, because you can put your list, even after you do something, just for the gratification, you can check it off.
I like it.
Yeah. Some people do like that. So if you want to win a copy of my book, PR Works, and one of my PR Maven Nation things to do today, Pads, go to prmaven.com/giveaway and sign up. Maybe you'll be our next winner. And we're going to be back in just a moment after we hear about the Marshall Plan.
Good. I want to hear it.
Hey, PR Maven Nation, Greg here from Marshall Communications. I want to talk about your marketing strategy. Some days, do you feel like you're a hamster running in a wheel? Perhaps you're running the same ad in the same publication because that's the way you've always done it. Or do you not know how many media impressions you got from that news story last month? Do you sometimes feel like you're doing a lot of work but not seeing the results? Well, the good news is you're not a hamster. And if you're feeling like your marketing plan could be better, we'd love to help. At Marshall Communications, we've worked with a wide range of businesses and organizations to create a customized marketing strategy known as the Marshall Plan. During a period of 3 months, we meet with you and your top stakeholders to learn about your world, what keeps you up at night, and best of all, the ways we can work together to combine your knowledge and our marketing and public relations experience to avoid the feeling of spinning in a wheel and create a 3-year marketing plan that provides you with a vision for success. The Marshall Plan is a fully customized document using our 65 proprietary steps and leads to a playbook for your success. And trust me, it feels so much better than running around in a wheel. Now's a great time for you to grow your business, increase your profits, and most importantly, measure your results. If you think your business or organization would be a candidate for a Marshall Plan, you can take our Marshall Plan quiz to find out. Visit marshallpr.com/quiz. And if you'd like to schedule a free consultation about a Marshall Plan, visit marshallpr.com/consult or call us at 207-623-4177. Be sure to mention the code PODCAST for your free gift.
So welcome back, and today we're talking with Lieutenant Tim Cotton, Bangor Police Department, and I want to dive right back into this scintillating conversation.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
We've been talking about the duck of justice,
Sure.
and I didn't mention that when I was a kid, I did have a pet duck named
Really?
Panda, And,
Panda duck.
I'm a big swimmer, and Panda used to swim around. I used to float on my back, and Panda
Sure.
used to swim right on
No
my
kidding.
stomach. And I grew up in Connecticut, actually.
Sure.
I don't tell a lot of people that, but we were summer people in Maine. And
Sure.
Panda would travel back and forth 5 hours in the car. And yeah,
Wow.
and this was a live duck,
Oh, yeah. You actually had to feed Panda then.
Yeah. And she was the best pet. She was loyal, and she was a Rouen, Rouen, but
Okay.
a brown duck,
Yeah.
similar to Mallard, but she couldn't fly.
Well, did you have to clip her?
No,
wings?
that's
Just
part of the.
their
They're typically
characteristics.
on farms. Yeah,
No kidding.
They've never been. They can flap their wings and fly a little way, but not far.
You were
so.
you were an early adopter of the duck of justice. Or
Yeah.
the duck of
No,
swimming.
she was just a great pet, and eventually she bit an electric fence, and she died.
That can be a problem. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, it's not good.
It's not funny, but it's a cute story until the ending, Nancy. I think you need to come up with a better ending.
Sorry.
Something more peaceful
It was
than that.
very sad. I don't know why I'm laughing. Oh my gosh. Maybe
funny.
we're going to have to edit this part out.
Maybe. Oh, Lord.
So, Tim, how do you measure success in your PR, social media, and marketing?
Well, I for a time, I think I looked at likes and thought that was the way to deem it successful. But what I know I do now is I look at the comments and I try to see if folks are being affected in some way, whether positively or negatively. I mean, sometimes I can I can certainly write something that's not going to make everybody happy. But I've really had to really support. I got to mention my chief he's in the same era that I come from, and he's not a social media person. He does our tweeting. That's his thing. I put TweetDeck on his. I do no tweeting. I can't write anything short enough.
Right.
I can't. I just can't. And
140 characters
can't
is
do
way
it.
too little.
Just can't do it. So he has taken over the tweeting, and he'll retweet. And I showed him, how to put, cut things down to a link, and so he does some things from our page. But he does the quick stuff, and he does it from his phone. So, but I wanted to say that he's been a really big supporter of what I did and didn't try to tweak it. And I think a lot of police chiefs, now you have to trust the person who runs your social media, and they're not going to say something totally outrageous and just blow you out, because we could be ruined. You can be ruined in a sentence. So you got to be careful. And I've had some faux pas. But I'm trying to think where we were. Where were we, Nancy? I get off on a tangent. But anyway, I want to thank the chief.
Measuring success.
Measuring the success, I think, is to see how the interaction. And I like to measure success. Non-analytic. I ask for postcards. I ask for something that's not. I don't let people run a contest. I'll do contests. I give away a sweatshirt every month, a Duck of Justice hoodie, and I do it through postcards. Well, now I know now, and I didn't know then, is that one of the most important things for a firm or a company is to have an email address now. To get email addresses is a valued customer target tool.
Oh, yeah.
You know way better than I do.
Email list is your most valuable asset.
I don't have one. I have their Facebook. So I get their email address. Now, I wouldn't give it to anyone, but I asked them for their email address. So I asked for it on a postcard. And the people that follow our page we get, I think we probably get between 20 and 50 postcards a week to go into the contest, where I draw one postcard every month and give away a hoodie. And I just make them tell me when they liked our page first, just so they have to answer a question. And there's no reason for that, except I'd like to know when they liked our page first, or maybe why you liked it. And I get these beautiful, heartfelt letters of why all the time. And I get letters every day from all over the country. And one of the biggest things I've seen, and I'm going to say this is my success, I have had more breast cancer survivors say to me and write me letters and visit from Indiana and visit from Southern New England that have said, your writing got me through my treatment. So it's, to me, I don't really need the rest of that now.
That's
because
success.
And I had a lady I was in D.C. this weekend at the Travel and Adventure Show this past weekend with Maine Tourism and the Greater Bangor Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I went and took the wooden traveling Duck of Justice, which is just a little duck. And we had, at this huge show, we mobbed the aisles with people who came to see and speak to me and have a picture and see the duck the wooden traveling duck of justice. We call it the TDOJ. We sent it to England last year. We had to have something we took because people want something like a focal point.
Right.
So we created this small duck hand carved by our it's beautiful too, but hand carved by Charles, our janitor, maintenance man. And he's world-class duck carver, by the way.
What's Charles' last name?
Charles, I don't want to give it because Charles is very private. So but anyway,
okay.
when I say world, he's renowned because
–
he brought it up. He's sweeping the floor one day. And I said, I'd like to have a little traveling duck because people like to hold a duck. He said, I can carve you a duck. And I'm thinking he's like me, like a guy with a jackknife and a stick. And he goes,
in his Carhart.
No, he says, no, I carve ducks. I'm like, yeah, okay, Charles. Well,
that's a real meaner for you.
I try to blow him off. He brings in his portfolio the next day, and he has ducks he sold for $2,000 and $3,000. And he carved it in the back room of our station, and it's all hand carved. A wooden duck. We take it's painted a wood duck. Looks like the duck of justice. So I take it with me on these trips. But we overwhelmed our aisle with people who came out to visit and talk, and not like, oh, I love your page. Oh, I love. They love the stories
that
on the
time
page.
when you said this,
yes,
and they knew exactly.
There was a woman who came and said 5 different posts over 4 years that she touched her heart, and she could almost spout them. And so then in the middle of this show, and I've gotten a lot of these letters from breast cancer survivors and cancer survivors in general, but it seems like women follow our page, and obviously a common malady is breast cancer. And they've all said the same thing. I was during my infusions or whatever, I read your stuff and it made me happy and it made me feel good because I could see. And so that to me is where the success is. It's not financial gain, but it certainly makes your heart feel better.
Right.
And so we had this clogged aisle at this national trade show this weekend. People just want to have a picture and talk. And I take time with each person because at one point we had 40 people backed up. We blocked the Cabot cheese booth.
Oh my gosh.
The guy that ran the show came down and said, I guess I got to get a picture of this because this is a big deal. I'm like, no, it's not a big deal. If you don't follow it, don't come down and try to, it's okay, man, if you don't know about it. But people were very confused why people were coming to see an old guy and a wooden duck at a booth from Maine.
Right.
And to me, I judge success by that. If I can go to DC, a cop from Maine, and have all these people take a train in on a Saturday to see you, you say, this was successful.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, it's surprising and wonderful. Yeah.
So do you have one parting thought you'd like to share with our audience today with PR Maven Nation?
I would say my closing line from my every Facebook post closes the same way. It says, basically, there's 3 lines, I'm not going to do it. You can come to the page and read it, but I'm going to say just be nice to each other. Even, we don't know what everybody else is dealing with. And
everybody's dealing with something.
Yeah, you really.
Even people who look like they've got the life of Riley.
Well, that's
right?
funny you say that. Over the years as a cop, I always thought I'd drive by these beautiful homes and I'd say, man, I'd love to be in that home, right? I'd like to have that. Because we're all human and we like the nice things, right? But then sometimes I'd be in that home as a police officer and I'd see how they lived inside that home. And I'd say to myself,
how they treat each other.
How they treat each other. And I'd walk into the houses and they were on whatever the problem was, whether it be, I'd walk out thinking, well, that's not the answer.
No.
This big house is a big smile on the street corner, but it's not real, you know? So, I think just take care of each other. I mean, and listen. Don't talk. Listen. I talk too much, but I really try to listen. And sometimes I just sit in the back and listen. And I think you're going to figure things out if you just listen.
Yeah.
I think, and advertisers and social media people, listen to what people want, pay attention.
Right. And also people want to be heard.
Absolutely. We do seem to blow off everyone else's ideas when sometimes they're really good, and we just don't have time because we think we know everything. What I can tell you this, I don't know everything. And I accept that every day.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, we all,
Something my mom taught me from an early age is that people will like you more if you ask questions and listen to them. They don't even have to know anything about you. They're going to really like you just if you acknowledge them and acknowledge their stories. So I think that's one thing that you're doing.
Yeah, I think, and also self-deprecation a little bit. If you can tell people, I always present anything I do publicly, I'll always tell them up front, hey, don't expect much because I'm just going to shoot from the hip and I don't know everything and I'm kind of an idiot and I just sort of came by this by mistake. And I think you got to present yourself like that because you can think about the person who shows up and says, I know everything, you shut them out. But if your person says, I'm like you, because we all have our flaws and we all know our flaws, even if we put out the perception that we're the best, I'm not sure that's the best idea always. You like the person who's like you.
Right.
And if they're really like you, they have a lot of problems and a lot of faults. And I have those, so.
Well, I love that humanity.
Well, we try.
So how can members of PR Maven Nation connect with you, and what's the best way that they can get in touch?
You can, if you either Facebook page, if you go to at Bangor, Maine Police Department, or you go Tim Cotton Writes at Tim Cotton Writes, which are 2 Facebook pages. I answer all the messages. So if you send a message to either one of those pages, I'm going to try to get back to you as soon as I can, usually within a day. And I absolutely, just reach out that way. Or tim.cotton@bangormaine.gov if you have a question or an answer or something you can help us with or I can help you with. tim.cotton@bangormaine.gov, and that's my police address, and I answer all those too, or I'm in trouble. So that's a guarantee right there. So, yeah, reach out.
Well, this has been so great. I think we could sit here all afternoon. I kind of wish we could, but unfortunately, we have to wrap up now.
Sure.
So.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. It was an honor to be asked by the great Nancy Marshall. Oh. It really was. It was a surprising, the PR Maven. Here wow, this is a big deal. And you came to Bangor to see me, which is really impressive. I appreciate it very much.
Well, yeah, we're trying to do some more road trips with the PR Maven podcast. So we did one in Augusta. We're doing it in Bangor now. We've got one in Topsom coming up in
good.
So we're hitting all the high points of the state. So
that's great. It's a great show, and I appreciate you coming to talk to me.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
So if any of our listeners want to give me any feedback or suggest a new guest or email me, I do read all my emails and will respond. So Nancy@prmaven.com. And just want to remind you that the podcast is brought to you by Marshall Communications, the creator of the 65-step Marshall Plan strategic process. And to learn more about the Marshall Plan, go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan. And we also do a series of webinars, which are free and very educational about social media, public relations, and marketing at marshallpr.com/webinars. And so I just want to thank you for tuning in to PR Maven Podcast. And please subscribe, rate, and review, because that's what keeps us going here at the PR Maven Podcast. And thanks for joining us. Keep on building those relationships and embracing all the new technology, and be authentic. And engage and tell the truth like the duck of justice.
Quack.
Have a great week, PR Maven Nation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the PR Maven Podcast. For show notes, links, and guest contact information, visit prmaven.com. If you'd like to connect with Nancy and the rest of PR Maven Nation, be sure to find our group on Facebook. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast and share our content to bring on great guests with more information. Plus, you can also connect with your target audience, build your network, and build your brand.